All right, so now that we've introduced some of the basic concepts behind stance, we're going to talk a little bit about defense now, delve more into defense. I like to talk about defense by first introducing offensive techniques. Without knowing offense, it's kind of hard to define what a lot of the defensive tactics are for. So from the offensive perspective, a good wrestling takedown consists of three parts, as I like to break it down into. There's the setup, there's what I call the penetration or the actual shot itself, and then finally is the finish. From the jiu-jitsu paradigm, typically the finish in jiu-jitsu versus the finish in wrestling is different, other than like maybe a blast double or something like that might look similar. But from the finish perspective, the goal behind the takedown might be different between the two sports. The setup and the penetration, or the setup and the shot itself, are pretty similar. The thing that lacks most in jiu-jitsu, if you watch ADCCs, especially nogi, is the setup. For the most part, jiu-jitsu players don't have the best setups. A lot of them really do have really good penetration and really good shot, but their setup is subpar. All right, so if any of you have heard anything about wrestling defense, a lot of times in a jiu-jitsu paradigm, people say, okay, what is the defense to a wrestling shot? And that's typically the sprawl, right? A lot of times they talk about the sprawl, and that's something you might practice and warm up sometime. And the sprawl in jiu-jitsu is way over exaggerated, if you want my honest opinion. Typically the sprawl might look something like this, and pardon, I'm on a carpet and a 2 centimeter mat, so this might not look exact, but from the sense of a sprawl, a lot of people, they throw both hips back, they slam their hips into the floor like this, oh, and then they kind of come up from that position. That is one of the last things that should be on your mind from a defensive perspective, specifically because it's one of the last lines of defense you should be concerned with, and two, because I'm putting myself out of position. Get more into that in a bit, but from a wrestling standpoint, you might have heard the adage, head, hands, hips. The lines of defense are head. I alluded this, the lines of defense start with head, then it goes to your hands and your hips, and I'm going to explain what all that means, right? A lot of times it's head, hand, hips, funk. You might hear that sometimes. Funk would be more like, different rolls and things like that after someone's way deep in on your legs and you have no other defensive tactics other than grab a crotch lock or grab a shoe or do some kind of a funk roll or something. But I'm not going to get into that stuff in this video, and to be perfectly honest, that stuff doesn't always apply to jiu-jitsu anyway. So okay, let's talk about head. We alluded to it before, right? If my head is lower than the opponent, they can't get to my legs. They can't take me down. If I had a partner, I'd be able to show that a lot better. But if someone was going to go in for a shot and I just really lowered my level, again, I'm not talking about doing this. I'm talking about lowering my level, getting my head in the way. They're no longer going to be able to touch my legs. Again, if I had a partner, I could demonstrate that a little bit more clearly. The second thing is hands. A lot of people say, oh, hands is the line of defense. That's not really right. That's just an H word, and that's probably why it's in that head, hands, hips thing. It's really arms. I want to get my arms in the way, right? So I want to get my entire arm between myself and the attacking opponent, right? If my opponent, say, is attacking this leg, and I'm able to drop this arm down and get my leg back a little bit so that I could kind of land this underhook, he's no longer going to be able to take me down, he or she. They're no longer going to be able to take me down. So when they talk about hands, that's really the second adage of that paradigm is really arms. It's really head, arms, hips. Finally, it's hips. Hips is going to be the sprawl, but the difference in terms of what a sprawl, what I consider a sprawl to be versus what a lot of the jiu-jitsu players consider a sprawl to be, is typically if I'm sprawling to one side, I'm gonna choose the side in which they're attacking, and I'm going to hit that on the mat, right? So for instance, if my opponent is attacking this leg and they're in pretty deep, I don't want to just go back square. If I go back square, what's the point of getting this hip low? Nothing. In fact, it could hinder me. If they're on this side, it could actually hinder me and force me off balance a little bit. Instead, when I'm going to sprawl, I want to shoot this hip to the ground. See, this could stay up. This could stay up. The reason why that's different is, remember what I talked about, how Coach Matt and some of the other Muay Thai coaches like Coach Tommy, they always talk about getting back to your stance as fast as possible. If I'm going to throw a Muay Thai, like they always show, if I throw a teep, I want to come back to my stance. I'm not going to throw a teep, step here, and then step back, right? I'm going to maybe throw a teep and come back right back to my stance. Wrestling's no different, right? I want to recover from that shot, that attempted shot, and get back to my stance so I could re-attack, or I could get back to a position. Now, this isn't always true. Maybe I'll cover a front head or do some other type of maneuver, but as a general rule, as soon as I come back, I want to come right back to my stance, right? I'm getting that hip out of the way. They're going to come back. They might retreat a little bit because they don't want to get front headlock. I'm going to come right back to my stance. In their retreat from a failed attempt at a shot, they're super vulnerable. If you hear about defensive wrestling, some guys like Nick Suriano, for instance, are some of the best defensive wrestlers in the world. That's what they're talking about. They allow themselves always to be in really good position, always having their hips underneath them, always being in such good position where they have kind of an impenetrable offense, so to speak. So when people try to do an attack, they're ready for a defensive attack. Okay, let's talk a little bit about some drills though, right? So first off, let's talk about that head. This is just a simple level change drill. So I'm going to be in my stance, and someone's going to attack me. Again, I want my hands to be low here. Someone's going to attack. I'm going to get my hands low. I'm going to get my head low. Get my head lower than that. It's really, really, really hard to attack somebody cleanly when their head is so low. There might be some contradictions to that rule, maybe like certain ankle picks and things like that. You might want someone's head over their foot, but as a general rule, if I'm able to get my head low, I'm in good shape. So that's one type of drill that you could do at home. Next one would be what's called a down block. Down block is getting your hands and your head in there, right? So if someone's attacking me, if someone's trying to do a shot, I'm not going to go all wonky and just sprawl when I don't need to. If they're taking a crummy shot, me just getting my arm in the way is plenty. So in wrestling, it's called a down block. So say someone's attacking this leg. They're shooting from this angle, they're attacking this leg. I could throw this arm down like this, come right back, right? Boom. Maybe they're coming here, right? Boom. So that's called a down block. And essentially what you're just doing is you're touching the floor as you're getting one leg back. If you know the leg they're attacking, that's the only leg you really need to remove, okay? And most of the time, based on angle and some other things, you could tell which leg is their primary leg for attack. And then finally would be the hips. I talked about that little, but a hip sprawl, you're gonna be here in a wrestling stance, you're gonna, boom, I'm here, I'm coming right back up. I wanna pop right back up to my stance, okay? Yeah, so that's it.